Here we go again.
Yeah, good to see you again.
Yes, it's so good to see you and have this conversation again with you, Chris.
Me too.
What's the juicy topic that you'd like to explore?
Okay, so to start with a question that we don't have a ready answer for. The question was, uh, why is change taking so long?
Oof.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's interesting. This question around change reminds me about the nervous system. Going back to the nervous system, right? I think there was this quote that I read that our nervous system will go for uh, a familiar hell
Hmm.
than be in an unfamiliar peace.
Oh, wow. Hmm.
And that is just how the nervous system is wired, right? And the ways that we become familiar to trauma practices, trauma-based systems, that becomes the orientation that we're so used to. And since our nervous system, our brain goes more for what is familiar, then doing what we've been doing is easier and tends to be seen as safer than going about a different route. And so change in principle is so unfamiliar to our nervous system. And that
Hmm.
brings us back into that loop of what is safe and what threats are. And so for
Hmm.
me, this is how I see why change is so difficult in the first place and why change is so long to happen. Because the orientation of how we've been wired
Hmm.
is very much deeply embedded in us.
Hmm. I have so many questions about that. This could go in so many different directions. I So I worked with a child psychologist for a long while, and her thing was that that wiring kind of, I guess we would say, occurred in the formative years, and that it can be, rewired, but it
Yes.
but it kind of gets kind of wired in. But her thing was that if a child, because we were working with children's centers and how to encourage people in healthy kind of ways of bringing children up, but especially babies. And her thing was that if it that with healthy attunement between mother and baby, that sets up a particular type of wiring,
Yes.
So I guess so. I'm placing that alongside what you've just said and wondering whether your feeling is that everybody would rather go for a familiar hell,
Yes.
or is it that
Well,
if you have a good, a good set of formative years without lots of adverse childhood experiences, as they say now, are you more, better equipped to handle change
exactly that.
and to find to not to be able to spot a
Yes.
hell, even if it is slightly familiar to
Exactly
you.
that. Exactly that in the sense of how much of our lived experiences and also epigenetics, right? So we're not just talking about
Um,
our own, but also what we've inherited um as part of our, epigenetics. So for me, what
yeah.
you've said, the last part is that's the most exciting part because when we have the next generations of people who grow up learning more about themselves, learning more about how they can be in relationship with others and with nature, so all this beautiful practices, then of course their nervous system is wired for that,
Uh-huh.
right? Unfortunately, the generations we grew up in weren't, right? That we've been much in this, very much of this survival protective mode as a society for quite a long time. And so
Yeah.
we need to, we need to reorient our nervous systems.
Yeah.
As compared to those who grew up with, like what you said, those who have more of those positive childhood experiences. And actually, there's a field of research around that, the PCEs, positive childhood experiences and positive adult experiences, and how much of this somehow mitigate even the effects of adverse childhood experiences.
Yeah.
So this work around healthy outcomes from positive experiences or hope is giving, yeah, a different data in terms of, yes, you might have had adverse experiences in life, but the presence of positive experiences, like one part of their research was even just having two adults who were interested in your well-being as a child, that already constitutes as a positive experience. And now having participation or engagement in community,
Mm.
that's a positive experience. And what they did in those studies was they were tracking um, the adult well-being based from the positive experiences. And what they saw was it it really mitigates, even though you've experienced a lot of hardships, but as long as you have those positive, higher positive experiences, then your adult well-being is also shifted.
Yeah.
So that for me was very interesting to look at, because for quite a long time, especially in the field of child development, we've always kept on talking about ACEs, adverse childhood
Yeah. Yeah.
experiences,
Yeah.
adverse community experiences. But now we're seeing, oh, wait a minute, there's other areas that we can explore, and how much of this gives us a different way to understand, right, how not just the nervous system, but really the well-being and the wellness
Yeah.
of individuals can be formed.
So I don't want to lose the positive experiences thing, and so I want to I think it'd be great to circle back round to that in a minute.
Yes.
But just before going there, there's I'm with everything you said, and there's a thing for me about kind of almost like this tendency to pathologize a bunch of this stuff and to see it on an individual basis. So it's kind of like
Yes.
what happened to you in your family, is the kind of because that's the psychological or the psychiatric frame. But as I was listening to you, I was thinking about so there is that stuff, and then there's also just the toxicity of living in a highly structured, highly oppressive
Yes.
environment. So there's the kind of the microaggressions, and not just microaggressions, but the daily aggressions of racism and patriarchy and um, heteronormative kind of family and society. So there's all the kind of the structural oppressions that are creating that are wiring our nervous system in a
Yeah.
particular way, particularly if we're in one of those oppressed groups, um, and wiring our nervous systems in a different way if we're part of the privileged group, because in some way, I know I've been wired to just be complicit in a lot of
Mhm.
that because then I can avoid it happening to me, So it's like,
Yeah.
and that's going to be wiring me in some way, right?
Mhm, mhm.
So there's all of that. And then I was just thinking of like life in the city. Like life in the city, I find when I'm in the city, I'm on hypervigilance the
Yes.
whole time.
Oh,
It's
yes.
like, what is around the next corner? Why is there so much noise? It's like the alarm bells are ringing the whole time. So there's, and I don't think I realized that. I'm 8 years into living on the land in the country. And at different points, maybe it took me 6 months to unwind from the tautness of living in
Mm,
and
mm.
then, something else happens at a year. I think something else happens at 3 years. Something else happens at maybe 7 years.
Yeah.
It's like what happens to your nervous system, and then what happens to your ability to connect to other people, and then what happens to your ability to connect to animals and the land and the
Mm.
birds and the trees and so it's and I feel like I'm 8 years in, and there's probably another 2 years to go until I reach, so it's like, so there's all of that as well, right? So there's your kind of your actual, and then there's your ancestral stuff, as you
Yes.
were saying.
Yeah.
It's like, so how much of that is baked into your DNA? And I think we're understanding through epigenetics that that can happen. Things can be passed on. Things can happen in the womb. If
Yeah.
if
What's
if your
emerging?
mother is,
Mm.
so and then there's that ancestral memory.
Yeah.
The people kind of just have a kind of, yeah, I'm seeing in people that they have what is it? It's like a dreamlike awareness
A
of
distinct
what their
knowing.
ancestors have been through. They
Yeah.
they can't quite remember the details of the dream, but they kind of have the sense of it when they wake up. It's something
Yeah.
like that. So all of that, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
We
okay.
carry so much of that. And this is why it's like we cannot change the next day because we're carrying all of that. Like if I even just think of my own history, right? Of we've had 333 years of colonization,
Uh-huh,
and that's just for the Spanish. So,
uh-huh,
so in essence, we had about 400 plus years of colonized history, and that's not something that that you can change immediately.
yeah,
So the colonial mentality really is deeply embedded
yeah,
in the Filipino psyche. The
yeah,
way that we have been what's this, indoctrinated to look at the Western gaze, for example, as, oh, this is the
yeah,
best, this is better, this is, this is what you're aspiring for. It's so deeply embedded in
yeah,
uh, practices in the family, in the school system, in political system.
yeah,
So undoing all of that, changing all of that,
yeah,
really requires a lot of dismantling, a lot of composting.
yeah. And growing up on the other end of that, just to flesh out the whole of the territory, um, that sense of um, inferiority and superiority around race, the sense of kind of irrational superstition, in the other, and just and but it, and even in this country, the countryside is seen as stupid. You know,
Yeah, the
people who live in
superiority.
the
Yeah,
country are uncivilized and uncouth and stupider than people who live
yeah,
in the city, and it's just yeah. So it permeates so much of what the civilization values and doesn't value.
yeah. And,
Mm.
and this is also something that was interesting for me when I was reading through um some articles around mitochondrial DNA, like
Oh, okay.
how the mitochondrial DNA gets passed on, um mostly from the maternal line. And what the mitochondria does is it's the powerhouse of the cell, right? So the ways in which we consume energy, the way we contract, or we keep energy, that's how our mitochondrial DNA works. So it I find it interesting in exploring what gets passed on
Yeah.
within a mitochondrial DNA from the maternal lineage, right? Of like, oh, how much of that tells us also how our cells would consume energy or contract energy, and how much of that is something that we do not even think about, right? Of like, we just think of it as, oh, burnout runs in the family, or depression runs in the family, or but if you really think about it, but that's how the cells react, how the cells make use of energy, and how much of the depletion or the nourishment comes from what has been encoded,
Yeah.
right? And even though it can be what's the so it's the neuroplasticity that we were talking about, right? That we can rewire that. But if we're not in the space of awareness, which is something that we've tapped on from our last conversation, right? Of like, if we're not expanding our awareness in how we operate, how we use energy and how we nourish ourselves, or we replenish or restore ourselves, then we just keep on repeating the same patterns,
Yeah.
right? And it's the same extractive pattern that we see in systems,
Yeah.
right? Because the contraction that we see in our bodies and the hoarding that we see in power is the same that we see in the systems around us.
Yeah. I'm tracking my process here, and I'm looking for the way out. So I'll be honest about this. So I'm looking for the way out. So and I because I'm noticing exactly what you said, and I feel like I've seen it in social movements. So I've seen it in change movements. It is this pattern. Um, and then I'm thinking of a post from a friend recently about how the message of Gandhi was kind of the importance of doing the inner work, so that you're not replicating all of this in the in the outer work. But then I'm thinking, like, and I get, our starting question was, why is change taking so long? And I get that this is definitely a part of the pattern, part of the what's holding us back. But I'm finding it hard to accept that we need to sort this first.
Yeah. Oof.
Bit,
I,
big,
yeah.
yeah. Okay, so just take
I
it from
have I
there.
have
Take it from
something
there.
there
Okay,
around that
good.
might trigger something different. And
Okay, yeah.
in light of this inner work, right?
Okay.
Uh what I'm seeing now and what I'm realizing now is, in the same way that we did with organizational development, we're putting development on the hands of an individual. And so we're treating inner work as a responsibility of a person. And
Yep.
that's why we're not changing as well,
Uh-huh.
because it cannot be an individual work.
Yeah.
It needs to be a communal work. It
Yeah.
needs to be a collective work.
Yeah.
Right? So I might be resource, but in an environment that constantly depletes me, then that would also not be to my detriment.
Yeah.
Right? So inner work is that, for me, I find it as it's a communal work.
Yeah.
How can we engage in this field of addressing traumas, addressing patterns, addressing our natural tendencies
Yeah.
from the lens of a collective, rather than, oh, it's my responsibility.
Uh, and what I like about that is it feels like, therefore, addressing that becomes the same thing as creating the world that we want to live in.
Yes, exactly.
So therefore, there is no inner work and outer work. There is just the work. The
Exactly.
work is the work, and it's all the same work.
Yes, from
Uh,
the cellular to the systems. Like I see it for myself of like whenever I give my body, I've been very upfront with um my breast cancer journey and the after effects of the treatments and everything. And I'm finding myself in a place of being in a different relationship with my body, especially with the lymphedema, and trying to understand, oh, how does the fluids in my body flow in such a way that it would not congest and it would not create more pain. And so this new relationship with my body is something that I'm learning to understand, and I'm doing that together with my lymph therapist, and I'm doing that together with my husband who does my compression. Like I have this vest that I so it's not an individual work, right? It might be my body, but I need all of this around me to support me in that. The word that I tune in with in the Filipino word is kaginhawaan, and it's that flourishing.
uh-huh.
Kaginhawaan comes from ginhawa, which is the fullness of breath. So for me to have that fullness of breath, I need all this around me to be able to do that. And
Yeah,
so this is why you said, this is the work. It's for all of us as part of my my circle, my system.
yeah. So say the word again.
Kaginhawaan.
Kaginawahan.
Yes.
Kaginawahan. Hmm. Mhm.
And I think this is where we somehow lost the plot when we're talking about change, because we're so much into, again, this very pathogenic what's wrong with us model, that we forgot, oh, but we also have capacities for healing, innate capacities for the environment to heal. And so how come we're not also looking at but what's wrong with us, what's already going well, and how can we amplify that? And this goes back to the positive childhood and positive adult experiences. Our framing is so much around PTSD, yet another branch of it, there's post-traumatic growth. So how come we're not amplifying that as well as a
Mhm.
way of orientation?
Mhm.
Because for me, that is the path of rewiring. Rewiring means um giving our nervous system multiple pathways of remembering that, hey, this is safe,
Mhm.
and that the trauma led systems that we're part of, that we've been immersed in, is actually the parts that are not safe. So that when we say, hey, how our nervous system is going for that unfamiliar piece, becomes an easier pathway, because there's more moments that I can remember that in my body.
Mhm. 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 I like that phrase, unfamiliar piece. Uh, it, I feel like I feel like I recognize that, and I feel like I can sense into that. I can feel that at a kind of, I can feel that at a cellular level.
Mm.
Like I could feel that at a physiological level. I could feel that at the level of whatever it is that meditates. So at the level of my
Mm.
soul, and I could feel that at a community level. I feel like I feel that quite often
Mm.
actually here in the
Mm.
community. That there is this kind of sense of peace that kind of arises or drops in from somewhere amid all the doing. Um, I don't, I'm not sure. I'm not sure whether I felt it any wider than that, but I feel like I could imagine it. You know,
Mm. Oh.
I can imagine somebody saying, "Let's just have a national day of unfamiliar peace," you know, and we'll just all hang out at the beach or, you
Mm.
know, like in the park in the city, and we'll just kind of, you know,
Yeah.
so I feel like I could imagine it at that level.
Interesting enough, when you were sharing of like I cannot even picture it in a in a massive
Yeah.
scale.
Yeah.
What came up for me was people's power
Oh
in the
yeah. Uh-huh.
1980s.
Uh-huh.
For me, it was like tanks, nuns, priests in the streets, guns, yeah.
Yeah.
Yet at the same time, there was a very unfamiliar peace.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, that's interesting. And so maybe they've had that, you know, in the Velvet Revolutions in
Mm.
Central Europe, but and too. Yeah. Ooh. Oh, I'm quite jealous of that.
Maybe there is, and perhaps this is again the work, right, of how do we remember?
Hmm.
How do we make our nervous system, our entire, body system remember that this is what it feels like?
Uh-huh.
So the change doesn't actually, make us
Uh-huh.
resistant to it, but rather we come from a place of curiosity around it. I I told my daughter a couple of days ago that I just really love how she approaches projects that she likes to do. So right now she's sewing a dress. She's saw a dress that she would like, and she would like to wear it for their anniversary. And she just watches YouTube, looks at patterns, So all of this curiosity around, I want to do something, and then I'm gonna figure out how to do it. And for me, this is that sense of yeah, that change might be challenging, right? It might be unsettling, but look from that lens of curiosity and inviting that curiosity, and of course there's also the the interest around it. Then it shifts to something different, right? It shifts to agency. It shifts to, oh, what is mine to hold in this? What is mine to do in this? And how can I invite others as well? So for me, I like this exploration of change might feel, to our nervous system as something very foreign. Yet, when we create all this, I would say, experiments and explorations and invitations for ourselves to try things out, then it helps us to get into that space of change from a different energy. It becomes something that you invite in rather than something that you repel.
Yeah. I wonder, as you were speaking, I was wondering whether it helps to have some kind of a reference point. You know, so like when we were talking about that kind of unfamiliar piece, if I have even the slightest glimpse of my own being at peace,
Mm,
whether that helps me to imagine the possibility of it happening external, you know, at a community or at a city level or a
mm,
national level, or I don't know.
mm, mm. Oh, and this is where building the capacity for reimagination needs to happen,
Uh,
right? Like how can we reimagine what that unfamiliar piece can look like and sound like and feel like? I I know for there's a tribe in the Philippines wherein they have dream weavers. So literally they weave um patterns. And what was fascinating when I was reading through about what they do is there's a dedicated, I would say, dream weaver who takes in the message from the spirits of like, okay, this is the pattern, this is, and the patterns have associations with color, associations with values. So it's very interesting process that they do. And then from that, from that dream, then there's a set of weavers who get into from the community to do the weaving. And what was interesting was whenever there's conflict between the weavers, they stop weaving and they attend to the conflict first. And I was just like, wow, that's so fascinating too. And the main what's the main reason was, the energy that you put in as you're weaving shifts also what is being created.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so before you do that is to attend to the rift that's happening. I think this practice is something that, that we have not taken in. And that's
Mm,
also why we resist change, because we see change as, oh, I'm moving away from what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm moving away from what I'm supposed to be creating. Um, and then when there's tension or, challenges that happen, we do not see it as, oh, a necessary step
mm,
to recalibrate,
mm.
but then we see it as, oh, it's an impediment to where I need to go.
Yeah. Yeah. I've seen this in facilitation, if there's anything between you and your co-facilitator,
Oh,
anything
yeah.
at all, it will show up in the group, and yeah, that takes me to a difficult place though, because that takes me to another reason why change is taking so long, because if there's any tension, any conflict within us as the ones seeking to create, the next world,
Yeah. Oof.
then it will show out, right? It will show
Yeah.
up in the process.
And this is also why what you mentioned a while ago, why movements are not creating enough momentum, because there's so much of this old patterns that are still coming up
Yeah,
in relationships, and how much we move in silos. And
yeah, yeah.
so what do we do?
So what do we do?
What do we
Well,
do?
what do we do? I mean, I think I go back. I think I go back actually, and I reframe the question. Because it's not. Why is change taking so long? It's just change is taking the time that it's taking, and it's all data about how ready we are to
Mm,
take on what we think we want.
mm,
Are we ready? Can we really imagine the world we want to create that's different from this
mm,
one? Are we really committed to it? Are we more committed to it than the differences that we hold, or the familiar hell that we know? Do
mm.
we are we really ready for that instead of that?
Yeah.
Um, and I don't have a I don't have a sense of urgency any longer about change. Like I'm working on a 20-year timescale, like so, and a lot can happen in 20 years.
Yeah.
So
Oh.
maybe it's just to apply curiosity, as you suggest, to apply curiosity to this whole situation,
Mm.
and how it unfolds from here. Just
Yeah.
look
I
at it
think
all
there
with curiosity.
alongside the timeline, right, of looking at it from 7 generations from now, the long now
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
time scale, one of the things that's really coming up for me is exploring change from um how can we deepen it rather than how can we broaden it, right? It's
Uh-huh,
the
uh-huh,
instead of scaling it by breadth, is how can we scale deep. And I'm going back to this Belgian chemist who said, when a complex system is far from equilibrium, small islands of coherence in a sea of chaos have the capacity to shift the entire system to a higher order. And for me, it's that of like not seeing the systems change from, oh, I need to change all of this, but to see where can I create my island of
uh-huh,
coherence so that I can deepen the work within my islands of coherence.
uh-huh, uh-huh. Yeah. And it's interesting, it's an island of coherence. It's not an island of radical difference. It's not an island of catalytic uh cata yeah, catalytic change. It's not an island of extreme power.
Yeah,
You know, it's
it's really small pockets of
it's a
stability, right? It's
but
small
it's
pockets.
coherence. It's
Yes.
like on this island there is depth. There is a yeah, yeah,
I'm reminded of this post that I wrote about looking at the relational field from density. How can we create more density when it comes to the relational field?
yeah,
And that involves, being able to sit in, with conflict and tension. And for me, an island of coherence can um can handle that, right? Can handle there's tension among us, yet
mhm,
because we are
yeah,
highly connected. There is the relationality. We see each other in kapwa, in our shared humanity, that we're able to address all of this that's happening.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So
And
maybe
that gives
that's
me hope.
that's the work. Yeah,
That gives me a lot of hope.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I think I'm just tracking. I'm tracking. I can see that. I can see an island of coherence. Then I'm just trying to kind of be a biochemist, which I'm not, which is what Pyrazine was, but I'm imagining it's something about it's when multiple of these islands appear,
Yes.
almost independent of each other, and then something happens between them
Yeah.
that
The
then
weaving.
tips the system over and into something else. So maybe maybe that's hopeful then. So maybe it's if I think in 20 years or 100 years or 7 generations, then it's like okay, it takes a generation to create the island of coherence and then another generation to create a bunch more, and then you feel like stuff is going nowhere,
Yeah,
but then all of a sudden there's enough of this, and it creates some interrelationship between it that just flips the system.
exactly.
Hmm. Hmm.
We
No,
do
I
we
can.
do say that, that trauma resides across generations,
Uh-huh.
yet healing only happens in one. And so the work that we're doing right now creates the nervous systems for the next generation.
Uh-huh. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, I see. I see. Yeah. So the healing process might be intergenerational, but it actually kind of culminates in one generation or yeah,
Hmm.
all right. Well,
We
that
started
feels
with something that we didn't know how to explore.
I know it's great. It's great. That feels like a good place to pause for now until next time.
Until next time.
Mm-hmm. All right.